Welcome to the Jack Rice Show. As I continue my look at energy and energy policy, I turn to Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn out of Tennessee. Congresswoman, thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, it's good to be with you, and thank you for your interest in the issue. My goodness, we appreciate this.
It is the biggest issue on the table for, I think, most Americans right now. For some time, we were talking about Iraq, and that seemed to focus our attention. And then with gasoline hitting $4 a gallon, I think a lot of us have said, gosh, maybe this is the driving issue, and this is what we need to be looking at. I know Congress is talking about this, too. Who should we be upset about? I mean, as your average American, people want to be mad at somebody about this, and I just haven't figured out who it is we should be looking at and being mad at.
Well, Jack, I'll tell you this. I think that people are right to be upset with this, and I think that people also understand that you didn't get into this situation in a week or a month, and this is something that has been brewing. Now, go back and look at what happened in the 70s under former President Carter, and some of the policies that were put in place at that point in time, and some of the leverage that was given to the EPA and the environmental organizations. Now, 1976 is the last time we had a refinery built in this country. In 1977, we had 324 refineries. Today, we are down to 149 refineries. In the same period of time, the nearly 31 years that has lapsed, we have seen population growth. We have seen economic growth. We have seen this not only in the United States, but we have seen it globally. We have competitors for our energy product from China and also from India and from many other countries around the globe. So the demand has increased. The refining capacity domestically has decreased, and we have the Environmental Protection Agency and the environmentalists that are pressuring your federal legislative bodies and your state legislative bodies to make it more difficult to build a refinery or to drill and explore for American energy resources.
But Congresswoman, at the same time, if we think about refineries right now, I mean, isn't part of the problem that nobody wants one in their backyard? And if they do have one in their backyard, the last thing they want is sort of the environmental concern that comes from them. And so I guess the logic would be, look, if we don't want either of those two things, do you blame the Carter administration for it? Do you blame the Reagan administration for it? Do you blame anybody if nobody really wants it?
Well, people have grown to fear having drilling or exploration or refinery capacity taking place in a close proximity to them. And so sometimes they begin to fear this. What we hear from many of those involved with the new technologies is that with the new technologies it is less intrusive, less invasive to the environment, and is more environmentally friendly. We also know that there are very stringent requirements on what can happen if you try to expand or things that will take place, what is allowed through the expansion or the building of a refinery. So we have some areas that are saying, not in my backyard. We have other areas, such as a county in my district, who the county commission said, we need jobs. We have a river. If you want to put a refinery here, let's talk about it. We would encourage you to look at us and consider us for a refinery.
Back in 2005, I recall talking to people at the White House, including the Secretary of Energy, about this issue. The question of why we didn't set standards for cars that were better, that we would say they need to be going on average 30 miles per gallon. And instead what they said was, we need to be concerned about the economy right now. We're not going to set standards. And if people want to set that as a goal, then that's their right. Wasn't that a failure of leadership? This is an issue that's been out there, as you just said yourself correctly, for decades. Isn't it the obligation of government to say, wait a second, we need to force these issues in whatever way you see fit to make sure we don't put ourselves in a position where gas is $4 a gallon, $5 a gallon, or even $6 a gallon.
Well, that's right. And, you can go back and look at where the price of gas was when the Democrat leadership took control of the House and the Senate. They're the ones in charge in D.C. And the price of a gallon of gas was right about $2.25 at that point in time. Today it is pushing $4. And it just shows you that the policies that are made bear a consequence. And the consequence that has come from the policies of the past year are we have seen gas just skyrocket. And the message that we are sending to OPEC and to our trading partners is that we are not serious. That the U.S. is not serious, that the U.S. Congress is not serious about this issue. The biggest action that the Democrat-led House has taken has been to outlaw the traditional light bulb. And that does not send the message that we're going to work to get the price down at the pump.
But is it fair at the same time, if we realize that a lot of the reasons for oil being as high as it is are the instability that we see in the Middle East, what's going on with the Iranians? Heck, we can talk about a whole series of things, including the drop of the dollar. And is that really a fault of the 16 months or so, give or take, that the Democrats have been in office versus a larger, broader problem by the government as a whole?
Well, there are plenty of steps that could be taken that would get the price down at the pump. I think that what we have seen with the escalation of the price at the pump is attributable to the lack of action, the Democrat delays that have taken place, the Democrat denial that there is a problem. We have legislation. Here's a great example. We had a bill on the floor last week that would have put a moratorium in place on the gas tax for the period from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and would have waived that 18.4 cents per gallon. We brought that bill to the floor. We said, so that our states don't feel this pinch, let's backfill this with the and by imposing a 1-year earmark moratorium. We couldn't get the leadership, the Democrat leadership, to support that.
Well, I'm curious about that, Congresswoman. There were a lot of experts, because I recall John McCain was calling for this, Hillary Clinton was calling for this too, and there were a lot of economists saying, you know what, this is pandering in its worst sense, and that what's going to ultimately happen is that this is going to drive up demand, which will drive up price, and then we're simply going to dry up the amount of money that would have come into the federal coffers to build roads. At least that's what some are saying.
Well, the way you keep it from affecting the road building money is to backfill that by having the earmark moratorium. But what we saw was a leadership that decided they were not willing to give up a year of earmarks in order to give a little bit of a break to our constituents who are filling up the tank this summer, to the trucking industry who are trying to get produce to our stores. We've got crops that have got to get out of the fields. Every time you put a 1 penny increase on the price of a gallon of diesel, the trucking industry in this country realizes a $391 million increase in their bottom line expenses. So you know, it is more far-reaching than that. Now, would you say that that's a good long-term policy? Well, nobody's going to agree that that's a good long-term policy, but as a very short-term step, it is a common-sense step toward a common-sense solution. What you would do is you would, in order to get some immediate relief, you would waive that tax. For the summer, you would backfill it with the earmark moratorium. At the same time you're doing that, you would delay your ethanol mandates to slow that down. You would give your refiners a break by waiving the EPA-mandated boutique fuels, the different blends that are required in different sections of the country. Have all your refineries producing just a standard grade of a regular, a mid-grade, and a premium grade gasoline, so that those are more easily transportable and movable around the country. At the same time you're doing this, you need to waive some of the requirements on refineries to address the capacity issue. At the same time you're doing this, you need to be certain that you are waiving and going through the permitting process for one-stop shopping, basically, to allow more drilling in the Outer Continental Shelf, in ANWR, in the Western Oil Shale, and the Canadian Sands.
Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, thank you very much for joining
me. Thank you for having me on. Bye-bye.